Well, let's bring in three members of Parliament who will be on the convention floor in Vancouver for their thoughts on some of the challenges facing the Conservative Party and some of the key policy discussions delegates will be having. Dianne Watts is the MP for South Surrey White Rock. The convention is kind of in her backyard. Dan Albas is the MP for Central Okanagan Similkameen Nicola, and John Barlow is the MP for Foothills in Alberta. Good to see you all. A decidedly Western feel to this panel. That's okay, isn't it?
Absolutely.
No problems with that. All right. No. This is a policy convention in Vancouver, so let me start by asking each of you, what, if anything, do you think needs to change about some of the policies of the Conservative Party coming out of the weekend convention in Vancouver? Dianne, you want to start?
Sure. You know, I think it really gives everybody an opportunity to come together and really evaluate some of the things that really went well, some of the things we need to change and move forward on, and some of the things we need to evolve from. And with the grassroots movement within our party, and it's always been a grassroots movement, it really gives everybody that opportunity. And I know some people want to come to the convention and make some changes, and others want to come there and just reconnect with people.
Okay. Dan, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think this convention is going to be really interesting. First of all, obviously post-election, people are going to be proposing all sorts of ideas. We obviously have a leadership race going on, and so some of the leadership contenders or would-be contenders will be there. And so it'll be interesting to see how they interact with some of those different policies. But you know what? Any big tent political movement has always got to be open and willing to hear not only from the grassroots, but also see where the puck is going. And so I honestly believe, Peter, when we're talking about convention, that's where I'm going to be looking for. Where's the puck going? And I'm going to be talking to a lot of our grassroots members, and I'm also going to be listening in the corridors to some of those would-be candidates.
Yeah, okay. John, what are your initial thoughts on what you think the weekend's about?
Yeah, I'm really enthusiastic about the convention. I think we have had a lot of feedback from our members after the election and during the election, obviously, as well. But you had mentioned you see the number of possible amendments and discussion items that have been brought forward. I think that's just shows the enthusiasm of our membership that they want to have a real say in what our party platform is and the policies that we put forward, and I think that's extremely healthy. These are discussions that we have to have, and I think we learned a lot of valuable lessons from the October election, and I'm pretty eager to see us get back to work. And I don't look at this as a rebuild. I think this is more of a refresh, but maybe move this in a different direction. I'm excited to see how that
Okay,
unfolds.
the logo on the wall here behind you says it all for us. It's a double convention weekend, and we're talking about that all through the program. And for the Liberals, they won the election, so it's all about being in power for the first time in 10 years and how to stay in power. For Conservatives, it's about having been in power for a decade and how to get back there. What's the answer to that question? What does this party have to do? And part of that, it takes, the answer to that question takes you through Vancouver. What does this party have to do to get back into power?
Well, being from British Columbia, we went from 21 members of Parliament down to 10. And so this is a great opportunity, not only for our grassroots to get together, but also to hear from British Columbians and see what kind of suggestions they would have for the next round. I would just also point out the Liberals, obviously, their convention, I imagine, is going to be more like a party. And, to be fair, they won big, and they're going to want to celebrate that. But I think it's kind of important to know that we're going to be hard at work, listening and asking good questions. And I think Rana Ambrose, our leader, has really raised it. The theme of this one is going to be really about reflection, also having good conversations, and really reforming or moving forward together.
Yeah, and I think also too, as Dan pointed out, I mean, we are heading into a leadership race as well. And I think with Rana being the interim leader, she's pulled everybody together. We're heading in a direction, and it will be interesting to hear from some of those people that have put their name forward as leader, to see what their vision is, where they want to take the party, and as well, there's some that haven't come forward yet that will still be at the convention. So I think it's really trying
to decide whether they should come forward.
Exactly. So I think it's going to be really important for us to really evaluate those potential leaders, what their vision is, because that will really determine who's going to line up behind whom.
Speaking of leadership, let me ask this. There are resolutions to limit the authority of the leader to affect policy, to nominate key party executives. There are 3 resolutions for more or more easily triggered leadership reviews. There's a resolution calling for term limits for the leader of 8 years after winning office. John, let me start with you. Well, actually, Dianne, let me start with you, because a lot of those come from your electoral district. There are a lot of your people in your riding who seem to feel a certain disconnection from the process in terms of being able to affect party policy. They want a better way in. What have you been hearing?
Well, I think that they want to make sure that the leadership and the team listens to the policies that are brought to the floor. And I think there's been a number of policies that have been in place that haven't necessarily been implemented or followed. We've had some really good public policy pieces around energy, clean energy, the environment, all of those things. And we've implemented a number of those things over the years, but it hasn't been communicated properly. And I think that, so oftentimes we get painted with the brush, well, we haven't done anything for the environment, and it couldn't be further from the truth. And I think that's the level of frustration, because there's a lot of people within many ridings across the country that care very deeply about clean energy, alternative energy, the environment, and and those social issues that we really need to embrace.
John, let me ask you, what have you heard from your constituents about this issue of, look, there's one resolution that talks about no longer giving the Prime Minister or the leader of the party the power to nominate the executive director of the party, and there's some fairly harsh comments about Dimitri Soudis in the resolution book, saying that was a disaster. What kind of things have you heard from your constituents and the party members in your electoral district about the greater role they want, the greater say they want in party policy and how the party operates?
I'm very lucky to have an EDA that's been extremely active in my membership over the years, and I think Dianne touched on it a little bit as well. And the biggest lesson that we learned over the last few years is communication, or lack thereof. And I think we've done not a very good job as a party to communicate with our members, and our members, I think, have been felt disengaged. And when
so you mean a problem top down to the people doing the work on the ground,
which is definitely not what the Conservative movement has been about historically. I think we take a lot of pride in the fact that our party has been historically grassroots up, and over the years, as I think can happen, you lose your way a little bit, and we have to bring that back, and our members are very clear on that. They want to bring that back to a more of a grassroots directed party, and I feel that this is absolutely a conversation that we can have, and I hope from this is we do a much better job communicating with our membership.
What are your thoughts, Dan?
Well, first of all, as a Canadian, I really firmly believe that the idea about term limits, that's an American innovation, and that's particularly their system. And sometimes I think we get ahead of ourselves where we say, well, we didn't like certain aspects, so let's change it through decree. And we know that sometimes doesn't work. In fact, sometimes there's unintended consequences. What I would suggest is that one of the things I will be looking for in both the leader and also in policies is that where the puck is going. Our next leader is going to have different attributes than previous ones. And again, Canadian politics is becoming so centered around leadership. If I say Mulroney Conservatives, or Harper Conservatives, or Clark Conservatives, you get a completely different picture. And the same when you start saying Trudeau Liberals,
Martin
previous
Liberals,
ones, Martin Liberals, Chrétien Liberals. So, I sometimes think we focus too much on leadership in the back versus where we're going as a country.
So let's talk about follow the puck. Does the Conservative Party, there's a resolution to make marijuana possession a ticketable offense. That comes out of Quebec. What should the party position on marijuana be, since by the next election it's likely to be legal?
Well, I would just say, being from British Columbia, because this is an ongoing concern. First of all, the chiefs of police are the ones that first made, through their association, made the suggestion. I actually believe it was a BC police chief that actually forwarded it at the Canadian national level. And so what they're saying is that when they're applying the law, there has to be a mechanism, because what if someone's smoking outside a hospital? What if someone smokes and then goes inside and demands service at a bar? So there's lots of these societal issues that still have to be navigated, and police ultimately want tools. So I think that it's perfectly fine for an EDA to be saying, let's give the tools to deal with the situation at hand. And I think that's really what a policy.
But we're heading towards legalization of marijuana. So if the policy remains to make marijuana possession illegal, which is, so where does the Conservative Party need to be on this issue?
Well, I think that's a discussion that that can take place at the convention for sure. I know that it has never been a policy of legalization of drugs, and I think that's why the chief of police say the ticketed offense. And I was the former mayor of the city of Surrey, supported that initiative as the former mayor, as did many, because I mean back to to Dan's point. I mean you've got a simple possession issue. Well, you're not going to have a criminal record. You're not going to go through the court system and all of those things. So there's got to be a measured response. Then you have somebody that's actually trafficking. Well, now you need another response. So
right,
it's
just on legalization for a second, Peter, if I could. Even with legalization, let's say tomorrow we had this new system in place. All the problems I mentioned about people, let's say, going to see fireworks. You have families down there and you have someone who's smoking a joint. Don't you think that Canadians are going to want to have some sort of policy? Because right now, if I was to smoke a cigarette outside of a building, I could actually get charged by the RCMP with a provincial ticket. So we're still going to have to, as a society, regardless of what framework, we're going to have to find new norms of it. And I think that's what Conservatives ultimately do. We try to do common sense policies that will give us a sense of order within a free society.
Okay, let's finish on this. There's two resolutions on same-sex marriage, and that's I think that might be a fairly interesting debate to follow at this convention. There are two competing resolutions: one to maintain the party's opposition to same-sex marriage, and another to scrap the party's opposition to it. I guess now, since it's the law of the land,
it's a moot
where does the party need to be on same-sex marriage?
It's a moot point. It's legal.
Okay.
Well, it's just like your point on legalization. Just like you're saying, the puck is going this way. Is that position even relevant? I think that just argues.
Okay,
It's not relevant.
So does the party need to abandon its what's in the current policy now is an opposition to same-sex marriage? So that's gone?
Well, I would just simply say it shouldn't be the elite political class here in Ottawa that decides these things. In the Conservative Party, we meet together every 2 years and we say the people should decide. So the card-carrying members, the people that are out there that are putting up lawn signs and believe in us, give us that direction. And so,
okay, so if a resolution that says we should abandon opposition to same-sex marriage is defeated and the party policy remains that the Conservative Party opposes same-sex marriage, you're okay with that?
I think it's the definition, though, of a man and a woman. But again, this goes to the heart of it because people's positions change, the legality of certain situations change. Canadian society has changed, and so any political movement that wants to be relevant to a lot of people, young Canadians, new Canadians, we have to always be refreshing. And so a recalibration, not an overhaul, what John was speaking about earlier. I think.
No, but let's get to the end. So what should the position be? What should the party's position be on same-sex marriage?
Well, and you touched on it. And I think we have to be very careful here in the fact that we've come out of this election. There's been a lot of push that we have to rebrand, redo, break it down and rebuild. I don't think that's the case at all. I think we came out of that election very strong. We have 99 strong members of Parliament. We had a very good result with the numbers. But at the same time, you have to be flexible and we do have to change. But the key for us as Conservatives, which I think sets us apart, is our grassroots and our members are going to make that decision. And if that's their decision, I think as members of Parliament, it should be our job to stick with it, talk to our EDAs and our members on the ground. And it would be, I just hope we go into this not having this attitude that we have to start all over again and rebuild this and get back to the core that was there. We still have to be flexible enough that we do change with the times on certain things, but still be true to our roots.
Yeah, great.
If I could just
You've got about 15 seconds.
Okay, well, any time in our history, when any segment of society, whether we're talking about Japanese internment, whether we're talking about residential schools, when any segment of society is pushed out or isolated, it has always turned bad. And again, and this is where, again, I'm going to support what John said, is that, societies change, our members will see that, and they'll raise their voices, they'll raise their hands, and guess what? We'll support them in that decision, whatever it is.
Well, listen, thanks to all of you for setting the scene for us, and I'll see you on the convention floor in Vancouver. Thanks.
Look forward to it, Peter.
Pleasure.
Thanks.
Okay.